I was watching one of your beat club videos. You were saying you getting 50K, 100K for beats.
No, I used to get like 300, 500. Producing ain't always just making music. It's part.
All right, fam, check this out. So most of us have seen the video of Timbaland talking about how the beat making skill, the producer skill, has gone down in monetary value with upfront money, right? Because that's what he's basically talking about, right? You've seen the video of him saying that, he used to get 300 to 500K off the break, right? For walking in the studio and making a beat right there with the artist, right? Okay. Of course, you know what I'm saying? Back then, that was the main way of communicating with the artist, by having face-to-face setup meetings, okay? Now, with the invention of the technology, you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to do in-person, face-to-face meetings with artists, right? You can do it over Zoom, Blue Jeans, or whatever, FaceTime, whatever it is, right? Or you have like, what is that, Landar, or whatever it's called. You can have face-to-face sessions with an artist, okay? Also, there's a thing called market saturation, right? Okay, in the business world, market saturation is where a company makes a product, right? They're the only company making this product, right? Maybe, and then after a few years, maybe 2 or 3 companies start making a similar widget or product, right? When I say widget or gadget or something, let's say gadget, okay? Because widget can have different meanings in 2022. All right, we all know that. So yeah, let's say you go ahead and you make this spectacular gadget, right? Next thing you know, someone finds out about the process. They study your process. Now there's 10 people making this gadget. Now there's 100 people making this gadget, right? Now the market becomes oversaturated, or in some cases no longer needed, okay? So let's go down that road. So sometimes things aren't needed anymore, all right? Now let me bring this back. I know I'm all over the place, right? This is how your man Kirk State is going to communicate this to you, right? So check this out. I'm in UNC status these days, right? OG status these days, right? Certified, right? I've been there in the 80s, right? Okay, in the 80s, coming up, if you wanted to make beats, right? Like me, I got inspired by Mantronic. I literally seen Mantronic in front of me playing with the TB-303, right? Tuning the bass before a show, right? That inspired me, right? I didn't even know what the hell it was, right? But I did see him with a 909, okay? I immediately wanted to get my hands on something like that, right? I went down to Bill's Music House outside of Baltimore, right? The 808 or the 909 in those days, in the mid-early 80s, the price was, I wouldn't say unobtainable, but it was way out there. I mean, it was way out there, right? And then, don't let me get started talking about the emulator 3, the EM3 or whatever it was called, right? That price, I was in high school, that price was, I think, $5, 6, $7,000 in the mid 80s, okay? So, during those days, a young Kirk State went by the name of DJ Cool Cut with a K, right? The people that I knew who had TR-808s from Roland, who had the 909s, the 707s. I didn't know anybody personally with an emulator, but I did know someone with the big gigantic Moog synthesizer with all the, you could plug-ins and all of that, the presets, you plug it in with the wires and all of that. I did know someone that had that, right? Also know people, I know at least 2 people that had the 808, okay? Now, these kids, right, weren't old enough to buy these things themselves, right? So these were the so-called spoiled kids, right? Okay. Not necessarily spoiled, but that's what the term was back then. If you had more than what your peers had, you were labeled spoiled, right? Okay. So very few people had this type of equipment because of how much it costs, right? So you would go over to that one kid house that had the TR-808 in the 80s, and they had family, they had 5 Series BMWs and all of this, right? So where I'm going to go to say that, you had to have some money to get into this, right? And then you would have kids who had the talent, right, that would come over to the rich kid's house, that you want to call it rich, right? Go over to their house, make beats, right? Put it on the tape and then take it elsewhere, right? That kid was me, okay? I would go to my neighbor's house, right? He got hold of the big, gigantic Moog, whatever it was about the size of this wall, right? He would literally play the song, or try to play the song Pac Jam, right? By the Johnson Crew. What I'm trying to say is they had talent, but it wasn't up here talent, right? So a lot of people that had these things, they had them, they were good, but they weren't that high level talent, right? Okay. So fast forward, what I'm trying to tell you is that once the price of the equipment came down, right? People who had the talent had access to it, right? So here comes the 90s, right? Here comes which kind of changed things in the beat making community, right? Here comes the Timbalands and the whoever, right? They had access to this equipment. I don't know Timbaland personally or whatever, right? But they had access to this equipment. People like me, I mean, I was even called spoiled, right? But I didn't have a lot of things. Like my dad worked for the state. My mom had her own business in the late 80s, right? So I started to obtain the little things, right? Like a Technics 1200 in the late 80s was about $300 or so, maybe $350, right? Or if I went to New York to I forgot what it was called, Jackpot or something on Fulton Avenue in Brooklyn, to go buy 1200, I think it was around $250. Or you could find a place up in Queens, it was like $250 for a 1200, which was still crazy in 87, 88, you know what I'm saying? For somebody like me, you know what I'm saying? But once I got a hold of that, you know, things changed. People started coming to my house to see me DJ and all that kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so now in the 90s, right? Equipment has come down, right? For DJs, right? But still was very, very, very high for producers or people that wanted to get into making beats. Like I said, I've known kids that had it at the time who had the 808s and all of that. And then the MPC 60 started rising around. I knew one person that had the MPC 60 and it was crazy, right? Me, I had the Dr. Rhythm, right? I don't know if you folks remember that. the Boss Dr. Rhythm, right? Little square thing with blue buttons. I put the picture up for you real quick. Okay, so I had that, and I would make beats on that with a pedal sampler, right? So I had the pedal sampler and all of that, you know what I'm saying? Okay? But when you were in the late 80s, early 90s, if you were good, right? It did not mean anything. It did not mean anything at all. And the reason I'm going to say that is because if you were not in the right place at the right time with the right connections or whatever it is, let's say right place, right time, right? It didn't matter how good you were. No one knew about it. You were non-existent, okay? Or people had to scramble around to find you, right? So I had a friend who had a connection through some kind of relationship with someone that worked at Atlantic Records, right? So they got a hold of my beat tape. So a guy named Jay Ellis, who put out records through a label on Atlantic, right? Wanted to hear my beats and all that. Okay, that was fine. So I go to New York, right? Go up there with my mom and all of that. Listen to the beats, fine, okay. So come back maybe, I don't know, a few months later, in comes this white kid. He had a MPC 60. And they put me on the spot and was like, yo, make a beat. I don't know what is going on, right? Make a long story short, the whole shit was embarrassing, right? Got kicked out. For real. Your man's got kicked out because they expected me to make a beat on an MP60, and that was like, I've never actually touched it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And I know that the kid probably at the time, me getting older, thinking like, this, he don't know what he's doing, right? But anyway, he's probably glad I got kicked out. But boy, if I had an MPC 60 back then, things would be different, right? But anyway, what I'm trying to break down is like, when Timbaland was saying that, you know, he would get this money up front and all of that, that's because you had these personal relationships with people, right? Where you had the connections with people that knew others that worked in the industry, right? Like I said, I had a connection just to get to that part, just to get to Jay Ellis' office for Atlantic Records. I had that little bit of connection, right? But I didn't have the follow through part, right? Except for my little tape that I made from the Dr. Rhythm and the pedal sampler, which was also, I think, made by Boss, right? The little blue one, right? Guitar sampler, right? So now, fast forward 30 years later, right? You have market saturation, right? You got the market saturation of equipment. Also, you have market saturation of talent, okay? A kid can go get a used computer for $200, a jailbroken or whatever you want to call it, stolen FL Studio or whatever, or even the old Fruity Loops, right? And stay locked in for a year or whatever, right, in his room, and send out beats, DM them to upcoming artists and so on and so forth, right? And come up that way, okay? So now you have thousands and thousands of young kids, adults, whoever, that are making beats now because you got the market saturation of the process, which is computers and all of that. Like I said, you don't have to pay a whole bunch of money to get into the art form. So you had that roadblock back then, which is now not a roadblock anymore, okay? So now you can get that money, that 300, 500K that he was speaking about up front. You're going to definitely get that on the back end. But it's easier for you to crack the door these days, right? So don't let these older cats tell you that, oh, well, you know, like you're not that good because you're only charging $10,000 up front, okay? Or $5,000 up front, which is very obtainable, right? There's tons of us that get that kind of money up front, and sometimes the beat don't even come out. You might get $5,000, $10,000, and the beat may never come out. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't matter, okay? But even on the back end, this beat comes out, you're going to get that 300, 500K eventually, right? So that part of the market is gone. So I wouldn't be discouraged about how when Timbaland said that, you know, he used to get 300, 500 and that people don't value it. No, it's still very valuable. It's just that with the market saturation, the talent is valuable, but with the market saturation, it's easy to go find a no name. I'm gonna call you no name, but someone that's not well known that's making beats in their auntie's house, right? It's easy for them to connect to someone that's coming up or just starting out and grow with an artist that way and make your money on the back end. Yes, no, these days, the only way you're going to make 300, 500K up front is if you come up with a made up instrument, right? Like the Harpo Boom-Matic or whatever, right? 3000. You come up with the Harpo Boom-Matic 3000 and you're the only person that has this contraption, this gadget, and the people that executive produce for Celine Dion and Beyonce find out, they're going to give you 300 to 500 up front because you're the only one that has that, right? So now you're not the only one that has Ableton or MPCs or machine native instruments, whatever, Pro Tools. You're not the only one anymore, right? I remember even Pro Tools, right? Things was ridiculous. You know, like like $3,500 for a Pro Tools hardware setup. You know what I'm saying? Ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Now, Pro Tools, almost nothing. You know what I'm saying? You go work at McDonald's for a month and come up with the money, and, you know, still living at home with your moms, your parents, or whoever, your auntie, your grandma, and go work at McDonald's or whatever, and come up with the money to get started, okay? So it's not about, it's a bunch of losers making beats, charging $1,000, $200, even $200 or whatever it is. It doesn't matter because you're going to make that money in the back end, but it's not about everybody that's in the industry is a loser. It's just that the talent is out there now where, okay, you're not going to get that upfront money like that anymore. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get that. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to get the money on the back end. So do not be discouraged about what Timbaland said, okay? You're going to get the money. It's going to come in, but no, not too many people are going to get 200, 300, 500 up front, okay? So even if Michael Jackson was around and he heard of you or whatever, they may not have given you that kind of money these days, okay? Jay-Z might not give you that kind of money these days unless you're going to sign some 3-album deal or something. Okay, you'll get 100, 200, 400, 700,000 up front to produce this. Okay, that's fine. They trust you like that. You know, they're going to invest that kind of money. But these days, before they even invest that kind of money, guess what they're doing? I've heard Jay-Z say this on somewhere, and he said, they are looking at your social media, at what you're putting out. Do you have followers? This doesn't only go with rappers and all of that. This goes with beat makers and producers or whatever you want to call yourself these days. They are looking at what you're doing right now for free. Okay? They figure if you can do this for free at this high level of talent, you are worth the investment. Okay? So do not let Timbaland discourage you. Okay? Keep at it. Keep going. Making quality. Okay, somebody's gonna get in the comments and call you work trash. That's okay. That means that they are listening. All right, let them listen. Let them say whatever, because not everyone is going to agree on the same thing at the same time. Or this would be the greatest place or the greatest job on earth, right? Making beats or producing music, whatever it is you do in the music industry. Do not let them discourage you. Okay, like I said, let me go back. In the 80s, equipment prices was crazy. So even if you had the equipment, you was not, doesn't mean that you were talented, okay? Then come the 90s, things go down a little bit. Some of the talented people started getting hold of equipment, right? And not always buying it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you saw the Wu-Tang series, right? Not all the time things were being bought. You know what I'm saying? Things were being taken, so on and so forth, right? They were backdooring the DJs, taking their equipment, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So do not be discouraged, man. That's what this video is all about. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to hit to bash Timbaland because he's the greatest. You know, one of the greats. You know what I'm saying? And you're not going to. I'm just going to be up, like I said, up front with you. You're not going to get that kind of money up front. Yes, you can get 10, 20, even 30, 40, even 50,000 sometimes, right? But you're going to have to be at a high level already. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to get the money on the back end, but you're going to need the talent, and they're going to need to see that talent through social media. That's the best way. You have people literally scouting, looking for talent. That's their job all day. The new AR is constantly looking for things, okay? So this your man, Kirk State. Don't be discouraged, and just keep putting it out, man. You'll get there. Trust me.
Kirk State.